journeyed her way to the top. And I just want to talk this afternoon about some of the joys, the highs, the lows, and what she could possibly offer as insights to other young people in our community in and around this area. So, welcome, Chavi, for this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Uncle, for having
Her
me. I'm
way to the
so
top,
excited.
and I just want to talk this afternoon about some of the joys. Victor, there's a bit of a lag, so if you can take care of that as well. So, Chavi, I know the the world knows your resume and how you went along, and so much of our conversation would be away from what is already known in the public domain. So, I want to really go behind the public persona and get to know you a bit and share some stuff about what you could potentially do for as offer as insights to young people who are struggling, young people who are under tremendous pressure. So I really want you to sort of feel the delayer us some of the complex things that we are going, considering you've just graduated. So congratulations, and you're on the threshold of a brand new career. So let's just get going. And I just want to go first to your high school years. What was it like, and how did this desire to get into the ramp or walking the ramp come in? What was life like in JP Stevens?
To be honest, this was just something that fell completely like very randomly into my lap. Growing up, I was not very involved in, of course, like the modeling pageant world. Um, it was my goal when I was in middle school was more to do something along the lines of being a marketing manager or being in international relations. And this was definitely just, I think it was the reason that I got into this is kind of like my background on stage. I grew up dancing and I've always loved being on stage, performing in that sense. And I grew up watching America's Next Top Model. So shows like this really just inspired me. I was fascinated by this world of fashion, modeling, and everything. So when I got the opportunity to walk in my first fashion show and model, I took it. It was me saying yes to an opportunity, and it just completely changed my life from there.
So you come from a South Asian family background, and I would imagine that you're expected to be good at math. You're expected to be well-rounded. There's a lot of and first-generation immigrant. So what was like in the Berg household? What were some of was it typical as we've come to expect a South Asian family to be, or did you have the freedom to pursue what you want? Were you good at certain things? Were you struggling at certain things? How did you navigate the world of academics and these extracurricular activities and so on?
So, growing up, I think definitely, my parents came here when I was 4 years old. So, being an immigrant myself, there was definitely a very strong focus on academics and being good in school. And my focus was also on that. Like, I don't think I prioritized my extracurriculars as much as I did academics, even though dance was also a very big part of my life. So, I would say dance and academics were like my top two things growing up. Uh, and then in terms of just getting into the pageant, right, with this background, it was different. No one in my family has done something like that. So it was definitely a deviation. But again, it was unfamiliar territory. It was new, but I'm glad that my parents are very supportive through it. They've always been very encouraging in that sense where they've told me, okay, you know what, follow your dreams, find what you're good at, pursue whatever it is you want, because at the end of the day, it's your life and you need to be happy with whatever you're doing. We just want to make sure that you are taken care of. So I had their full support, which is something I'm eternally grateful for.
Nice advice right there. Your parents gave: follow your dreams, pursue what you're good at. And all of us, everyone who's bestowed with good strengths or natural inclinations and talents, was there any time a situation where you were asked to do something or there was pressure to do something and you were not good at, which you or maybe good at it but didn't quite enjoy? that much. Young people always are finding those situations where, if that pressure to be an engineer, the pressure to be a doctor, a pressure to sort of get, be the perfect child. Was there any such pressure that you went through, or it was a free flowing sort of a journey?
I think, in my household at least, my parents were very open to whatever it is that I was interested in. Like, I would always have these conversations with my mom, especially, who I'm very close to, about just what my skills are, what are things that interest me, and she would give her guidance as to what she thought could be a good career path for me. But there was never any forcing of like, okay, you need to become like a doctor, you need to become an engineer, which I know actually a lot of my family members and friends have sort of had that pressure from their household. So I am just very grateful that, my parents were very open in that sense. And I think that is important, like at the end of the day, if that's not something you're interested in, you can pursue that path. But if your heart is not in it, you're not going to be the best doctor or engineer or whatever else it is that you do. And you're not going to be happy. So it's not really, I don't know, just from my perspective, I just don't think it's worth it.
So would you say dance and the stage, the performance on stage, the spotlight being on the dancers, would you say that was the entry point into the world of show business, into the world of modeling? Or at what point did you say, hey, I have it in me to be this amazing model, or a future in the beauty world?
So I would say, okay, there was definitely, because of my dance background, there was definitely a love for just stage in general. But I've told you, Uncle, growing up, I was very chubby. I, had glasses, braces, acne, like you name it. And then to add on to that, the issue of colorism, which just made me feel like I was never really beautiful growing up. So the whole pageant modeling thing was like not even near anywhere on the radar. But the love for stage, the love to be in front of people, the love to just, like put myself out there was always there. And I'm glad that at one point in high school, these two worlds were able to cross together and collide when I had the opportunity to walk in my first fashion show.
Now, it takes a certain personality and confidence to get on to this type of an industry. Did you have it all growing up? At some point, you metamorphosed into that during your high school years, or just tell us the beginning and the entry point about how did you feel as a young girl saying, do I have it? Sometimes we feel, what if I fail? Those kind of fears assail our mind. What happened in your mind and what happened in your life during that time?
No, I would say confidence is something I've definitely had to work on. And I think I'm a very big believer that confidence is something that you practice on a daily basis. You have to exercise it like any muscle for it to grow stronger. Just like, how I mentioned in the previous, like the thing we talked about, I had all these issues growing up. I received a lot of criticism for my looks, from the color of my skin to how I took care of my skin with like having acne, which is just such a normal part of the teenage experience, to, being chubby and like having like people tell me that I was fat and I needed to lose weight. When you are 10 or 11 years old, comments like that can be so detrimental to just how you view yourself. So, as a result of all of these factors, I grew up going through high school thinking that I was not good enough. I was not fitted for that industry or for something like modeling. That was the furthest, like I mentioned, furthest thing that I could have even imagined. Um, but it definitely comes down to believing in yourself. And I think a lot of my confidence came from me getting involved in fitness. When I actually did my Arangitram, actually, I started doing a lot of running. I started seeing like, tone in my arms. I started getting more fit, strength. When I started weightlifting, that added another layer. And I could see physically how much stronger I was getting, but also emotionally and mentally feel the benefits of living a healthy life. So these I would say health and fitness definitely changed my life in a big way. But doing that, starting to work on myself in other areas, making myself the best version of myself each day and making that a goal. Like, I want to be 1% better today than I was the day before, whether it's in some skill, whether like if I have this goal of learning Spanish, which I do now, of like getting better at Spanish. It's when you look at a big mountain and you see a task or when you set a goal, it can seem very intimidating. But if you just tell yourself, I'm going to spend 30 minutes a day reading something in Spanish or practicing something in Spanish. I just want to be 1% better, a little bit better than I was the day before. And you add that up you do that every single day for 365 days. Now you're technically 365% better, right? That's probably not accurate mathematically, but just that going by that logic, you're so exponentially better after a long period of time if you just implement small habit changes. So it's similar to even how I built my confidence. I would do things that would make me proud of myself and keep doing that repeatedly, exercising that muscle. And that's what helped immensely.
Wow, that 1% incremental growth principle. It's a powerful principle. So, in other words, what you're saying is you can't become this, overnight beauty or an overnight strong person without actually going through that daily incremental growth. So where did this obsession or this commitment to growth come from? Was it something that you acquired during your beauty pageant journey, or have you always been sort of a bookworm, committed to growth? What was your personality like?
I think it's been an inherent thing. I don't know why, ever since I was young, I've had this thing of like, okay, I just always want to be a little better than I was the day before. Like self-improvement has been a very big part of just my value system for as long as I can remember. Even to this day, I'm never really content just sitting and doing nothing. I like improving myself and I like looking back and seeing the progress I've made. So when I even like something as small as like my Instagram, which people most commonly know me for, I can look back at pictures from like 2015, 2016, when I just had my account and I can see them now. And I can see all the work, all the progress that has been made just from like little things like how to take a good picture, like learning how to do that, how to edit things, just all the skills I picked up in that process. So
You seem to be like this learning junkie, so to speak, like committed to growth all the time. So, folks, here we are having a conversation with Chavi Berg, a youth influencer and Miss USA runner-up 2017. If you have a question, do send it to me privately on chat, or you can type it as well. And we will spend some time. Like we promised, this is going to be an interactive. So quickly, Chavi, you referenced social media just a minute ago, and I want to ask you a couple of things. The whole premise of social media is comparison with, models like you. And what is your message to young people who either may not have any? Does it have to be in comparison with somebody, or God made everybody beautiful in their own way? What's some of the things that you see people conversing with you? What's the dialogue you tend to have with the people on your influencer circle?
So like regarding how social media impacts our lives.
Yes.
This is actually something that I've been giving a lot of thought to. It's interesting you asked this question just in the last few days. I was reading an article that a friend sent me, and it was talking about how we're starting to see a divergence in the worlds that we live in. We are living in this real world, right, that we go through day to day, but we are also living in an altered world, which is what we see online. And, it's like one example that had been given in this blog article was that you can see a beautiful sunset or a beautiful sunrise at the beach. You take a picture of it. And when you put it online, you're not going to put that picture online. Typically, like very rarely do people put the picture of the sunset as is online. They'll put a filter on it. They're augmenting reality. And when you look online and you're just browsing through your app, you're seeing this beautiful sunset. That was not even the way that the real sunset looked.
Original.
It's not even the original. It's an altered version. It's a filtered version. And it's just that one article that actually had a big impact on me, because it just got me thinking, like, yes, we spend so much of our day online. I think especially the youth today. I spend it because of course it's a part of my job now, but the the teens growing up with this is a huge part of their high school, middle school experience, their college experience, and they are comparing, like, at a very subconscious level, their reality that they know everything about to this version of reality they're seeing online, this augmented reality. And the impact of this in the long term is something that I find very concerning because it's not based in truth. It's just fabricated, and it's harmful to think that what you're seeing online is reality. It's not.
Great point. Altered reality, augmented reality versus real reality.
Yeah.
Well put, Chavi. Anita Amarnath asked a question, and we go back to the virtual media in a big way. I'll take two questions at this point from your audiences. One is how typically, particularly after the pandemic, kids are under even more pressure because every social interaction is out. Academics and extracurricular are now taking different forms. Um, how should how did you manage some of these balances or juggler, just like a juggler would juggle multiple priorities? How did you manage as you worked your way to the top? What's your advice to young kids now? What can they do to really manage their multiple, almost conflicting priorities?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I would have had better time management skills back in the day because I remember it being in junior and senior year of high school, feeling like I wanted to pull my hair out of my skull. I felt like that would be less painful than juggling everything I had going on because I was just, I was involved in a bunch of different clubs that took up a lot of time outside of school. In school, I was like, in a lot of like honors AP classes, and the workload was just like they gave a ton of work. So that extracurriculars, and then I had my dancing on top of that. So I barely had any, like I was getting 4 hours of sleep regularly during my junior and senior year of high school. I think the most important thing, well, I know why I put myself in that position. Number one, it was because I felt like I was in a rat race to get accepted by these huge schools. I think most kids in that age, most teens that age, it's very natural to feel like if you get into XYZ school, you will be set for life, right? All you need to do is get into that school and everything will be worth it. And you put a lot of pressure on yourself to do that, and you put a lot of value on getting into that school. I did that. My dream school was Cornell University, and I wanted to get into that school no matter what. I would do, like, that's why I beat myself up so much during these last 2 years of high school to be able to get there. I did not get in there, but I was also very hard on myself. It took a huge toll on my self-esteem as well because I felt like I was not good enough to be there. But something that I've learned after all these years out of high school is that truly, like, yes, it's great if you can get into your dream school, but it's what you do when you get into the school that really matters. You can go to your local, your state college and do absolutely amazing, do all the extracurriculars, take on leadership roles, to get internships, get experience that you need, like when you get out of college. And that is worthwhile, make connections. Or you can go to like an incredible school and just do nothing there with your time. And that's not going to serve you in the same way. So, going back to the question, which was how I managed, or how I would manage now if I look back at it, I would be very intentional about the clubs I'm doing. I would not just do them for the sake of like filling out a college admission essay or like having like a good resume for college. Oh yeah, I did this, 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 this. I would pick the one or two things that I am truly passionate about, and I would give my 110% in those. That would definitely help with just the amount of things I had to juggle. And something I'm still working on to this day is time blocking. A really good friend of mine is a crazy time blocker. And I've been able to like pick up a little bit of tips from there with like, okay, you know what? with all the distractions we have today, it can be so easy to get sidetracked throughout the day. Like just pick up your phone and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be online for 5 minutes. You end up being online for like half an hour. So just being intentional with my time, setting the limits, like, okay, like, from this time to this time, I'll do this, lay out your day. And then once everything is done, you can treat yourself to a little bit of social media or online time.
All right, so I'll combine a couple of other questions that came in the chat. One is, a person's asked, hey, Chavi, I'm a big fan of your TikTok. How can we balance mental health and social media? And then there's another question that is actually linked in a sense to some of the things that you were talking about is, what are your philanthropic goals? What avenues, this is Don, who, the first question was Joey. The second is Don, who said, what avenues would you be investing your time in the future, knowing the time we have ahead is only limited?
Okay, so I'll go to the first question first, which
Sure.
was
Social media and
and
mental
mental
health.
I am very cognizant of the pages I follow and the people that interact with my profile. So, when you do put yourself out in the world of social media or any kind of online sphere, whenever you put yourself out there are many different people online and they will say many different things. So I try to comprise my feed of people whose content genuinely inspires, encourages, or uplifts me. So if I go through my news feed, I'm seeing motivational quotes. I am seeing like motivational videos, things about chasing your dreams. And that I try to make it inspiring for me. I like that kind of content. So I try to do that in terms of who I follow. And when it comes to people interacting with my profile, I have very low tolerance for people who are disrespectful and who spread hate. So typically, I will not even engage with that because I do believe you set the tone for how you want people to treat you, and you can't control their actions, but you can control your responses to their actions. And if I get like haters or trolls online, I block them. Like I don't have time for I don't have time for that.
A very simple approach
Yeah.
to dealing. So it's strange that people who are generally nice in the real world just turn a beast on when these guys are trolling and stuff. And it's a very pressure situation because if you don't respond, everybody else is watching how you respond. So there's tremendous pressure, right?
Yes.
So it's a very interesting dynamic that plays out. And
Okay.
one comment online can just destroy young people's self-esteem. It's like
Absolutely.
cyberbullying, verbal bullying,
Mhm.
sarcasm. It's very, very unhealthy,
Yeah.
particularly if they get kicked on, right? So it's a very going back to that pressure that young people that are living in today's world, pressure comes from two three sources, in my view, generally. I'm no sociologist, but based on being a parent of a teenager and a young kid, I could sense some of it comes from peers, some of it comes from pressure. Actually, one of the questions that I think Matt asked was, one of his friends' parents are pressurizing him to go to Ivy League schools, and therefore the pressure just mounts on that kid, and that kid is going through a bit of a depression. So pressure from these exceedingly almost unrealistic expectations from parents, and also pressure from peers who seem to be all over on
Mm.
social media. How do you sort of protect yourself, and what is your advice to young people who are always on these situations?
Yeah, that's a really tough situation. And honestly, peer pressure has existed for a long time, but I do think because of social and because now we have access to so many augmented realities, the pressure definitely heightens. I mean, you know what? I think it just comes down to knowing who you are. And again, that's easier said than done for sure. But I truly believe that we each have our own unique gifts and we each have our own unique abilities. Um, you cannot, again, control what other people are doing. And by wishing that you had what someone else has, you don't really get anything. That's just it's like a very like fluffy concept, if that makes sense. You can feel envious, you'll feel that emotion, but nothing is going to materialize from that feeling. But if you can take that energy that you're feeling and harness it into figuring out what your gifts are, what your talents are, and strategizing, like setting goals on how you can reach that. That can immensely impact your life. So I'm actually currently, this is a little bit of like related but side note. So I'm doing this program called Lifebook. It's on mindvalley.com and I absolutely love it. It basically, like the idea of it is that you look at your life in 12 categories like health and fitness, your intellect, your relationships, etc. And you, for each category, you set down what your long-term goal is, like what your beliefs are to begin with. So, for example, in health and fitness, I believe that a healthy body is, the foundation of a great life. Then you go down to like talking about what your vision is. What do you want your health and fitness life to look like? And then you go on further to define a strategy for that. And I think when you spend that much time really analyzing your life and figuring out your goals and your strategy, it's kind of like it serves as a little bit of a barrier to comparison because you're so focused on what you have to do and your path that you just the peer pressure of others, even though it affects you, it slightly lessens because you have a plan of your own. And I've told Uncle this, I love this like metaphor, you could say, called the racing horse mindset. And it's like the idea of it is when racing horses, like when they have horses racing, they'll put blinders on the sides of their head so that they don't get distracted by the other horses. They can just, focus on their lane. I feel like that is something that I would recommend that everyone adopted in their life. Like, put on your invisible blinders, focus on your journey because your life, your gifts, your experiences you've had, and your purpose in the world is different from another person's. And you can compare and you can think, oh, I wish I had that, but it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to serve you well in the long term.
Super answer. I love that the fact that you're working on a life book with these 12 categories and each category has a specific goal and a strategy. So in other sense, in a way, you're building your own life GPS, life roadmap, and then you're going. And in some sense, that kind of blocks some pressure from outside comparisons. Excellent answer. I love that answer because if you're not setting goals and living by your own purpose, then others' purposes and others' pressures will get to you. That's the takeaway. All right. Another question before I go back to my set of conversations. There's one individual who wrote, and I'll quote the exact question. I often feel sometimes that I don't want to wake up in the morning and feel like I have no purpose. What creates purpose in one's life? How do I find what I'm worth and meant for? Very, very powerful question.
Yeah.
For purposes of privacy, I'll not share your name. Thank you for that question.
I have been there. I've been there multiple times. And the top two examples I can give you from my life are, again, when I put so much value on being accepted into Cornell University and when I got rejected, that broke me. I felt like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? My plan to get into the school didn't go through. And I didn't really care about that anymore. I was like, okay, whatever college I'm in, I don't really care. And the second time was when I came off of the Miss USA stage, which was a bigger hit for me because my entire purpose, like I would say 2 to 3 years of my life, were
dedicated,
focused on becoming Miss USA. And when you spend so much of your time, energy, efforts on thinking that that is going to happen, when you visualize, like I would practice visualization and see myself there, like I am Miss USA. I would tell myself that. And it, like, the moment is gone in a minute. When I got off the stage, I didn't win Miss USA. I had me and a lot of my other friends as well who competed with me. They had the same feeling because all of us were in that same position. When you spend so much of your time in one thing and it doesn't happen for you and you associate your identity with it, you feel lost, you feel disillusioned. And a lot of people feel that after college as well, or after high school if they don't go to college. Just it's like you're out in this world and there's so much going on, you don't know what to do. What I did, well, I'll give the example of Miss USA because that's more recent. After Miss USA, when I felt lost, I started to use Instagram actually as my outlet. I majored in marketing, and I just I started building my profile on there just to see what it would be like. It was kind of like a creative outlet as well, and just for me to document my year, what everything was like, and keep it as like a memory book for myself, like a virtual memory book. And when things, when my platform started growing and like things started happening for me, opportunities came, it became like my job, like it became a business. So it's interesting. And then I realized that, oh, you know what, I actually really like marketing, I like social media, I like doing this, I like modeling, I like speaking, just things like that. And I would say, when you feel, I know there were two parts to that question, the one about waking up and not having the energy, and I'll get to that in the second bit, but just in terms of finding your purpose, I would say try everything. Um, I often go to books to help me with that. I'll just read different books. I'll watch motivational videos because sometimes someone's story can really connect with you. Like if you're watching something on like one of those pages, like the motivational pages, you see a speaker and you're like, wow, this person swam from here to here and they did this at this age. I find that so remarkable. I want to know more about their story. I want to know more about their background, like things like that. You When you learn from other people, you never know, like sometimes it like calls something within you and it makes you want to try something. It's just a lot of trying different things and keeping yourself open. You never know when that thing hits and where it'll lead you to. I never knew that like my dancing background would lead to me one day walking in a fashion show, which would lead to me one day walking in a beauty pageant, which would one day lead to me being here talking to all of you today. So it's, yeah, you just have to keep yourself open. And I don't think there's just one purpose in life. I think you can have many different purposes. I don't think there's like that one thing you're meant to do, especially in this day and age when you have the internet, you have so much information available to you. You can do anything and everything you want to do. It just comes in phases. Like you could do this thing now and then maybe in a few years you realize, oh, actually I don't like my job here, I want to be an artist instead. You start painting. So yeah, it's just about being open to all of these things and being receptive.
Great responses. Great. You're so articulate and you're so passionate and you're so earnest in your
Thank
responses. And I love that. We're now at the halfway mark and we will do a little more interaction, but I want to just go back to two questions. Actually, one of Joyce from the Middle East actually has asked this question in the open chat, actually saying, thank you, this is a very interesting conversation. Uh, what are two challenges you faced growing up and how did you manage to cope and overcome?
Two challenges I faced growing up. Definitely with feeling good in my skin. That was a very big one. With the amount of criticism I faced, in high school is that time. I think, I don't know how it impacts boys, but I know for young girls, it's definitely, you feel like you're almost under a microscope because you're changing and there's this pressure to look a certain way, to behave a certain way. Like you want to be cool, you want to fit in, and it's hard. And now, especially with, again, social media, it's even more so. So when I was in high school, I definitely felt like, I had moments where I would just wish, I was like, why can I not be beautiful? Like I even asked my mom that one day. I was like, Mom, why can't I be beautiful? Like I have all this acne. I was chubby when I lost the weight. I had braces. And then when I got rid of the braces, I had all this acne. And then now that I have this acne gone, I have scarring. Like it's just like, when is this going to stop? And my mom would just my mom would just be like, you know what, it's okay, it's a normal part of growing up, don't worry. She's like, when you get 20, it'll be fine, you'll settle into your skin. And she was right. Like, you do start like feeling more comfortable in your skin. But I think just at the time I just did not feel comfortable in my skin. That was a very, very big challenge for me. And the second challenge I would say is, again, just I feel like when I was younger, I had a very set idea of what it meant to be successful and what it meant to be on the path to success. So, especially growing up in such a South Asian like culture, like my town is very South Asian heavy. So just in general, there was this sense that, okay, if you want to be successful, you need to do really well in school. You need to be in all AP and honors classes, get like a 2400 at the time on your SATs, get into an Ivy League college, get out, get a huge job at like a nice, like, big firm, and then get married and settle down and then have kids, and that's success. And I could see around me that my friends were doing things like being doctors, being engineers, doing all these things, and I was not. And it just comes down to being like, okay, that is not, I can see now that that is not the way to success. You create your own success. You don't, following the beaten path is a safe way to success, if that's what you want to call it. But forging your own path, I think, is truly what leads to fulfillment.
Oh, wow. Forging your own path will lead to fulfillment. Excellent. Emmanuel, another participant in the chat, asked, who are some of your role models and how did they help you in your tough times?
Wow. Okay. When I was younger, I definitely looked up to Malala a lot. Malala's story was just so inspiring to me. How, like, it was a story of persistence, right? It's like no matter what, you just keep going. Like, she felt so strongly about education that even when people tried to stop her, to the extent that they did, she didn't let that stop her. She kept going. So Malala, there's this amazing swimmer, Diana Nyad. I watched her TED Talk, Uncle. I don't know if you've seen it, but she is incredible. She was, I believe, 64 years old when she swam from Cuba, like that's the body of water from Cuba to Florida.
Yeah.
And she did that in like, I think 2 days, 2 to 3, a little shy of 3 days. And she did it without any like protective gear. She swam. And it's a beautiful TED Talk. You all really need to check it out. But the persistence, again, the resilience. I think growing up, those were my role models. People who kept going despite the obstacles in their way, and people who came from nothing and were able to make something out of it. I've always been fascinated by stories like that. Just how people, for me, it reinforces the idea that you do create your own path. Again, like you can have nothing and you can build something out of it. You can keep going despite people who try to stop you, and you can just always overcome. I love when people overcome these challenges. That it inspires me like nothing else.
Super. A couple of other girls have been asking Olivia's question and Ritika's question. I'll kind of blend them into. So when Olivia says, when I face challenges in high school, how do I overcome? And Ritika's question is more like, as young girls, we seem to be going into a male-dominated type of a world where we'll always be competing, and the orders seem to be stacked against women and young ladies. Is that something you feel? What's your encouragement to these girls?
So the first question, Olivia's question, you said was about
challenges in high school, problems. How do you cope and how do you overcome in high school?
Like, just did she give an example again of like any kind of specific problems?
Specifically, grades inside of high school, trying to keep up with everything, time management pressure, lack of sleep,
I know,
lack of rest.
I know it's tough. But again, I think I mentioned this like early on with time blocking. I think that is I've noticed the days that I time block, I get a lot done because my energy is very focused and my distractions are very limited. And we can say that, yes, we'll just
So what do you do when you time block? So just so these young people.
Okay, time block, yes. So when I time block, what I do is I wake up very early. I wake up at 4:30, 4:15 in the morning. And my first hour of my day is like typically my morning routine. And part of my morning routine involves planning. So I will plan like the day. So I'll have like a list at the top of like the tasks that I need completed, like a big list. Like these are all the tasks I need completed. Then I narrow that list down to being like, okay, I'm going to pick the top 3 things I hope to accomplish on this day. And then from then on, I try to fill in my day. Like, I'll be like, okay, so I have this task, this task, this task. I'll do this from like 12 to 1. And then I'll take a little 15-minute break from like 1 to 1:15. And then I'll get back to work at 1:15 to like 2:15, and I'll just do this other task. So it's like when you allot the time for each task. There's this quote that says that if you tell yourself it's going to take you like a week to build something, it'll take you a week to build it. But if you give yourself like 2 days, it'll take you 2 days. So allotting time for tasks and naming what you want to accomplish in that day has been very huge for me. And then anything that I can like do quickly, I try to get that done as soon as possible. Like we have a tendency to procrastinate like the small little tedious tasks like, oh, fold your laundry, put that away, when typically it'll take you like maybe 10 minutes. So I try to do that immediately so it doesn't stack up and add to my list of tasks. So that way I would say for time blocking that. And then the other question you mentioned was about the workplace and
Workplace, future, male-dominated world.
yeah, that's another thing too. I've been very interested in reading about like just how being a woman impacts us and our workflow differently from maybe men. And a lot of just like how, like, women are run very much by their hormones because of like the cycle and everything, and how we can actually leverage that to our advantage and use that as a superpower as opposed to a weakness. I feel like I've grown up thinking that going through the cycle of just like like the women's cycle as a detriment, thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be like tired these days, I'm gonna like like it's just I can't, I don't feel like doing this. But how can we use that instead of thinking like those are the low energy days are days that we can't do anything, to thinking that the low energy days are more for self-reflection and for planning, whereas the high energy days are more where we can like attack and work, and using that to our advantage. So when it comes to just like the workplace and going into a male dominated field, I do think fortunately they are starting to shift. I can't say that from experience myself as I'm not in like
The corporate or
that corporate structure. But I mean, look now, we have our first female vice president, right? That's a huge, huge step forward for women. And we are taking that, like, we have all these like CEOs that are women, and they're paving the way for the rest of us, showing us that this is possible. And you don't have to compete with men, but you can actually if you can like find and get in touch with that power within yourself, you can achieve great things as well.
Super, super. Good response. Great response. I think times are really shifting where women and young girls can expect a almost level playing field where they can express their talent and gifts. So do not be anxious about the future. By the time some of you guys enter the workplace after college and stuff, the consciousness and the conversations will increasingly go away around these gender equalities, hopefully. And
Yeah.
I'll say a big amen to that.
Yes.
We'll quickly change gears and we'll go into some fun parts of the interview. A lot more questions coming in, Chavi, but I want to go back to one question on dealing with setbacks, dealing with how do you bounce back after something does not go your way. I remember in 2017, May, you were holding hands and 3 million pairs of eyes watching. And just walk us through that experience of you in this close in popular parlance, or I mean, I'm not saying this to just make you feel good, but many people felt that you deserve to be that year's winner. But, que sera, right? What made you stronger? How do you deal with that? What went through your mind at that time, and how was it after processing it? And how did you bounce back after that? And ever since that, what's been your approach to setbacks, and how can you advise young people to embrace these setbacks and become stronger?
Well, I think this, so rises and falls, I think, are a very natural part of life. And for me particularly, the Miss USA experience is it is hands down the biggest experience of my life that I had. And for a long time, I thought like my biggest failure. Again, this goes back to me associating myself so strongly with this that I felt very lost afterwards. I almost went into like a very low state afterwards where I felt confused, hopeless, um, rejected. It was just not a good time. And I feel like the way that I I would talk to my mom a lot about this at the time, and I would just say, I don't know what to do with myself. I just feel very lost. And she would just say, many times in the world we're in, it's so fast paced. We have this pressure that we think we need to always be climbing and climbing and climbing and getting ahead and doing something. But sometimes we need to just sit back and take a break, because for so long, that's exactly what my focus had been on being Miss USA. I'd been working so hard to be this one, to achieve this one goal of mine. And she said, this is a time for you to, again, take a break, recharge, and get the energy you need to move forward again. If you keep going up, you'll wear yourself out. So this is your time to do that and reflect again. So that's what I did. I did a lot of reflection, and it wasn't easy, because I for a long time just felt very disenchanted by everything. I was going back to college at this point, so I had taken a little break to compete at Miss USA, like a little semester off, and then I had gone back again to finish my degree, and that was the last thing I wanted to do, because I had been so enchanted by this world of being, in the pageant sphere. I was on stage with Pitbull. I was doing interviews, photo shoots, which is so exciting for me. And to leave all that and to go back to doing exams and studying and going to school and sitting in lectures, it was just very different. But I did that, and I was like, okay, maybe this can help me in some way, and like help me figure out what the next step is. Just going through those processes, it wasn't easy, but it helped to go through that time and to figure out, it gave me more insight as to where I wanted to go next. And it was actually during that time of me resting, going through college, that I realized, yeah, I do love marketing, but I really loved being on camera at Miss USA. I thought that really called to me. And I think I want to do that again. And in college, I made the decision, okay, let me give acting a shot. Let me give speaking a shot. Let me give hosting a shot. Like this in front of the camera careers in a sense. So then I shifted gears and I started following that. And again, today we live in a world where everything is so connected. It's so easy to have, all this information to figure out what to do. You just Google search, hey, how do I get into acting? What are the steps I need to do? And when you look at enough videos and sources and do your research, you start seeing similarities, and you can start like kind of piecing together like a puzzle. Okay, you know what? A lot of people are saying this thing. Maybe this is what I should do next. I went out and got my headshots. I did this, that. So yeah, I think that has just always helped me. First of all, my mom's advice, and two, just
Li- Listen,
just
listen
know.
to moms. Listen to moms is the advice.
Yeah, so that was the first thing. And the second thing, just being conscious, like, okay, this is all a part of life, right? Like ebbs and flows, and not just staying neutral during those times, not associating yourself too highly with the victories, not associating yourself too much with like the little downfalls, and knowing that you will just keep going. Keep
In
going.
fact, Rudyard Kipling, a famous poet, says that you should treat victory and defeat as imposters,
Right.
meaning don't fall in love with either, just treat them with equal
Right.
cynicism and distance as well. Very well put, very well put. In fact, I just want to combine a couple of other questions that a couple of chat participants asked. Somebody said, I'm far away from home. I'm living alone. I'm feeling sad and lonely. How do I cope? And the other question was, some people are not as gifted. Let's say you found your strengths to be, people oriented, in front of people, comfort, facing the camera, comfort, and so on. But there are some who are introverts and shy and have a struggle opening up. What would your advice be to folks who are dealing with loneliness, inability to come out from their shell? What's your advice in such situations?
Well, so I can speak on like the introvert thing first. I was doing the Life Book program, and the guy who created that, he's an introvert, and he was saying that we live in a very extrovert world, and
Dominated world. Yeah.
yes, extrovert dominated world. And a lot of people associate that as like a positive, like it's just assumed like, oh, if you're extroverted, it's a good thing. If you're introverted, it's a bad thing. But the world needs introverts. We need them, right? Because those are the people who are maybe more like, yes, they're reserved, but they're doing the thinking, they're doing the like the little things.
Writing, reflective.
The
in
reflective,
art,
exactly. That
painters,
sort of work.
musicians. Yeah,
Exactly. And we need them as well. Like there's this balance, right? That uh, I feel like we live in a world where sometimes things get taken to the extreme. They get labeled as this is good, this is bad. You all need to be this way. And it goes back to the point I made very early on about recognizing your gifts and harnessing your power and building on that power to get ahead. I don't, all these people who have created these startups now that are changing our lives, that have changed our lives so much in the last few years. They're not all extroverts. They're all introverts, right? A lot of them are. So it just goes back to you reflecting. I think journaling is a great way to do this. Journaling and figuring out what is it that you like? What are your interests at? What are you passionate about? Making maybe even a chart of like, these are things that I like doing, and these are things that I'm good at doing, and then find out where those two meet, what you can do to pursue that little middle area in the Venn diagram. That could be so using that to your advantage. And the second part of the first part of the question was about loneliness, right?
lonely, sad. Yeah,
Um, again, I think we're very blessed with technology. So FaceTime, Zoom calls, once you find your passion, you can also go on to finding groups, because there are also a lot of groups online that are built around similar passions. So if you're into public speaking, you obviously have like Toastmasters. If you're into dancing, if you're into just fitness, then going to like a specific club or a gym to work out. Like there's just so many different ways to connect with people now. It's just about finding that group. And I think once you do find that, that can really alleviate a lot of loneliness if you're away from your family.
excellent. Chavi, we are now coming towards the last leg of the interview, and I want to make it very interactive and fun. It seems like 50 minutes has just gone by in a blur. So while Chavi is kind of taking a small reflective break, I just want to ask you some fun questions.
Okay.
What do you do when you don't feel like getting out of bed and go to the gym or work out? I mean, there are days when you don't exactly, you feel like, oh no, I wish I could sleep some more.
Yeah.
Particularly winter, right? So how do you motivate yourself? Because I would imagine to the entire season when you were getting ready to the pageant, you had to be so ruthless in just spending hours in the gym. So tell us, how many hours did you actually spend during that path, and what was your goal? What did you do when you didn't feel like it? Were there cheat days?
So, well, when I was preparing for Miss USA, I had to be very strict with myself with the cheat days. So, in that was the most I've ever gone to the gym, because I would go in the morning for about like an hour and a half, and then I would go again in the evening for an hour and a half. So it was like I was basically spending 3 hours at the gym. It was crazy. And okay, so the pageant war, that was different because my motivation was just being the winner alone. That was enough motivation for me to just get up and go. Now it's a little different where it's like I don't really have anything I'm preparing for. And some days you are a little low energy. Like yesterday, I was very low energy. I did not want to go to the gym, but it helps to have people hold you accountable. That's number one. I have an incredible trainer. I have all these friends who are constantly like, this also goes back to me talking about who I follow and who I have in my news feeds. I have a lot of like my trainer friends, and like it's like every time I go on Instagram, they're like, "Let's kill it at the gym. We're working out." So like you see those kinds of posts, you're just like, okay, yeah, I should probably go. So stuff like that. So accountability is important, and two, sometimes the biggest battle is just getting there. I'm reading a really good book. I just finished a book, Atomic Habits, and it talks about how, like, we often say like if you feel lazy one day, maybe like not even going to the gym at all. But he's like, it's those days that are the like most important, because if you can get yourself to the gym, and even if you could if you tell yourself, I'm just going to stay for 5 minutes and do this really quick thing, it's really monumental. It's like really huge in building a good habit and keeping you like associating your identity with that habit. And a bad workout day is better than a no workout day.
Workout day. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to, like yesterday when I didn't want to go, I was like, you know what, let me just go to the gym and let me just see what happens. And then I'd give myself a little countdown, like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, go. And then I go.
No, that's interesting because I mean, how do you stay motivated even when there's snow, there's slippery roads? You could come up with a million excuses why you couldn't go, but the ability to just stay on task is very important. And young people, I'm sure, are listening in, and later when this goes on YouTube, will they should find the ability to be fruitful and committed to their own self and stay honest with themselves. What do you do when no one is watching? That's what I think determines success or lack of it, right? So
Yeah.
that's the important part. Tell me about the diet. I mean, when you were preparing for the pageant, I'm sure Indian food per se is not what dietitians prescribe for
Actually,
beauty.
so you would be surprised. My mom wanted me to go to an Indian dietitian who could give me like a meal plan, surround like circulate, like, you know, with Indian food in mind. Um, yeah, so it was interesting. But I would say my biggest thing was I gave up ras malai, which is my favorite sweet. And while I was preparing for my pageant journey, I said, okay, you know what? I can't have that. I'm gonna give it up. But that'll also give me motivation, additional motivation to win, because then the day I win, I'll have ras malai. That was my thing.
That was your reward for
That was
winning.
my reward. Yes. And actually the day, so when Miss USA ended, like I met my parents and they're like, we were in Las Vegas, right? All of a sudden, everyone started looking for an Indian food place. Find where they can get ras malai. Give this girl some ras malai. There's this mad like rush to find where we could get ras malai in Las Vegas.
All right. So one last question, Chavi. What you've achieved a lot in a pretty young age, and you're building a platform for yourself with young people. What are the causes that you are championing? What is the impact you'd like to leave as a legacy on the world? What would your voice should be known for going on from here on?
You know, something that I'm just extremely passionate about is women's rights. And I think a huge reason for that is that my grandmother, someone who, you know, both my grandmothers come from the background that they do, but my father's mother, my dadiji, she especially had been married very young. She had such a different life and childhood compared to mine. And to be able to see that and just how in 2 generations so much has changed, the opportunities I am so grateful to have access to here and all the things I've been able to achieve, I don't take that lightly at all. And I know that there are a lot of other women that are still in that position that my grandmother was in, like, you know, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I truly hope that with my platform and with my voice that I can do something to change the situation for the girls that are around the world today who don't have the rights that I've been blessed to have, who are, you know, not able to go to school for whatever reason. They are married very young. They are seen as a burden. I hope to change that. I hope to leave an impact on them and help them prosper and become the best versions of themselves.
Thank you, Chavi, for this delightful hour. We are upon the hour, so young people, I'd like you to join me. And we have all these folks who joined. Chavi, great having you in this delightful tete. We really enjoyed conversing. I wish you the very best as you espouse these causes of gender equality rights, of trying to see a lot more young people, young girls particularly, find their voice and calling. And I wish you the very best of success. May God bless
Bye,
you with great
Robert.
health and success. Everybody, thank you for joining in. We will be in touch. Make sure you follow Chavi on Insta, and wish you all a wonderful, happy Valentine's Day season.